Hello there, anybody who accidentally... Fucking hell. Hello there, anyone who cared to accidentally click here while looking for pictures of Edward Cullen. Not only are you about to be severely disappointed, but you might even hear a little bit on why Twilight Saga's new moon sucks a whole lot of ass. Now, I'd never heard of the Twilight series before until my sister showed me it on DVD, and I was pretty ashamed to say at the time that I liked it. I didn't think it was good, but it had a strange quality and atmosphere about it that made it strangely compelling, like when you see a car crash or a train wreck and can't help but sneak a peek. So of course, as you do, I read the first 2 books in a week, became bored of it and never spoke of it again. Then the sequel appeared, and I just knew I had to see it. In fact, I'd kind of been looking forward to it, strangely enough. The first one had its problems, but it wasn't bad. It had the cast and looked nice enough. Just a couple of things here and there, and it should be bearable. And I watched it, and I cried. But these weren't little weeping tears that I accidentally lost during the first film. These were real tears of sadness and horror. I cried so much, in fact, that surrounding teenage girls began to comfort me, thinking I was as sensitive as their protagonist Edward, their hero, and I might just be that same rugged guy. When the film ended, the lights came up, my face was shown, things became a little awkward. Now I'm going to assume you've seen the first one and know it's about the protagonist Bella Swan, the boring, blinking... Yet because the film needs it to work in her favour, she's also the most desirable woman ever. Yes, they have the weakest female leader... Oh, Granny, what? Assume you've seen the first one and know it's about the protagonist Bella Swan, the boring, blinking... Yet because the film needs it to work in her favour, she's also the most desirable woman ever. Yes, they have the weakest female lead imaginable. At least in the books I found Bella interesting, but here she just doesn't say anything. Well, she meets her love Edward Cullen the vampire, and they go off to live miserably ever after. Well, we catch up with them a few months later, and now troubles have arisen in the relationship. No, they're not getting bored of each other, which is an absolute miracle, but instead Bella is attracting all his vampire buddies by spontaneously bleeding all over their house, and he has to leave town quickly to avoid her being killed. How sweet. Anyway, the rest of the film revolves around Bella's growing relationship with a new boy, Jacob, and her desires to see Edward again by riding around on fast bikes. I'll get there. Anyway, there is one consistent problem with the series that I find. Now, as far as the books go, I don't enjoy Stephenie Meyer's writing. It doesn't seem natural, and I know what she's going for with this dark, foreboding feeling of loss with extreme amounts of drama and tension, but realistic to me, that just doesn't work. As far as the books go, I'm not a massive fan. However, I like the concept. I like the struggle the characters go through, especially Edward, who goes through the themes of immortality and loss, and I think Myers has some very good ideas. It's just she isn't great at displaying them in under 500 pages. So I thought you cut all that down to a movie length, we should get a concise review of all events and some deep themes going on. We didn't get that the first time round, and we certainly don't get it this time round. This can only be blamed on one thing. It's not the actors. They were good. Rob Pattinson, after hearing endless comments about how good he looks, surprised me by how good he was. The supporting cast was good. And the lead, well, we'll come to that one later. The directing of the first film was okay, a lot of spinning camera that cheapened it, but I could see what it was going on. No, it was this woman, the screenplay writer. Her name is Melissa Rosenberg, and she can't write. In fact, Melissa can't write at all. Looking at the history of the screenwriting process, I found that a lot of scripts had actually been written for it, but they were seen as too departed from the book, and eventually, to please the fans, the only script that followed the main plot very closely was Rosenberg's. In fact, she even got help from Myers, who, as I said earlier, I don't like her writing, to finish the script. What we got was a lot of silences, small talk, and lots of ums and blinks and ahs from the lead. No one had anything to say. Even Edward, whose character I liked in the first film and the book, was only interesting when he was telling us about his history and how the vampires work, but it doesn't take a good writer to make that interesting. They're just interesting facts. There's nothing inspiring there. So next film, let's wipe the slate clean, fix up the problems, getting Chris Weitz to direct, who does a damn good job of the film. He does lose the dark feel, but instead replaces it with some nice cinematography and no spinning camera. Getting some more actors. Taylor Lautner especially surprised me again. His work in Shark Boy and Lava Girl and that random kid in Cheap by the Dozen 2 were inspired roles, but here he really impresses me. And then bring back... oh, you. And then, holy shit, what are you doing here, Melissa? I told you to go home. Yes, she's back to ruin it again, and she's also back to ruin the third one, so that's something to look forward to. There are spoilers here, by the way, so turn off if you don't want to hear. Anyway, so we start off with Bella and Edward really happy, even if again they have nothing to talk about and or in common. Thanks again. Edward says some really cheesy lines about how Bella breathing is a gift to him, which is a perfect example of how bad the script is. It just doesn't feel natural. Everyone just says very just unrealistic things, and I know it's about vampires, it's not supposed to be realistic, but still, the point stands. He also then tries to impress the ladies. He says some Hamlet. They seem to eat up that shit. But anyway, then it's party time, and this is when the plot kicks in. Bella, somehow, possibly through her being such a bad actress, she manages to break the laws of reality, cuts her finger on wrapping paper, causing Jasper, one of the other vampires, to go absolutely apeshit, and Edward to save her by throwing into a glass mantelpiece. Thanks, man. What comes of this actually is a nice scene between Bella and Edward Cullen's adoptive father, which I'll give its compliments is genuinely well done, and unfortunately the best scene in the film, and we're only 10 minutes in to a 2-hour flick, and the best bit has gone. So Edward feels guilty and leaves, begging Bella to be safe and not get into trouble. Now 15 minutes in, with the best character gone, how could this get any better? Well, as a consolation prize we get a lot of Jacob, played by Lautner, and he did a very good job. In fact, everyone did, despite the dialogue they had to work with. But not before Jacob can turn into another mythical beast and save Bella from some vampires. These are the ones from the first film, Victoria and that random black guy. Now I'm fine with Jacob being a werewolf, everything is a little off, but hey, I'll let that go, I'll believe it. But it's just the way it's handled. Melissa can't write drama. Jacob appears, says he can't hang out with her, appears again, says he can never ever ever tell her what's happening to him. In fact, Edward was much like this in the first one, coming up to Bella saying, I can't hang out with you, leaving, coming back and says you shouldn't hang out with me. He's the one initiating everything. And Bella has seemingly just Melissa has seemingly just copied and pasted all of those dull conversations into this one. But at least here Jacob doesn't start kicking apples in the air using crappy CG effects like in the first film. This wouldn't annoy me, but then Jacob just turns into a werewolf right in front of her, and then no one mentions anything. It's not like it's a big deal that Bella knows. That entire piece of the film was pointless, trying to build up drama with no payoff, other than, well, you know, I guess. Wow, Jacob. Subtle. Anyway, and this film has even more Bella in it, which is even worse. Bella isn't a character in this. She's a plot device. She helps us from A to B. She just causes problems so the characters can react around her. For instance, she doesn't think, which is bad writing for a character. It doesn't make them seem real or interesting. For instance, Bella becomes obsessed with rushes, which is why she's building the bike with Jacob in the first place so she can crash it into a rock and hurt her head. Wasting not just time that her and Jacob spent building it, but also my time watching them build it. And it's unfair on Jacob. He really wanted to go on it. Look, he's so excited he even took his top off again. Anyway, every time she has a rush, she inexplicably sees Edward. I don't know if this is Edward telepathically talking to her, or just some weird shit which isn't explained, but oh well, at least Edward's back in it. Anyway, Bella becomes obsessed with rushes. When she sees people jumping off a cliff, Jacob says to her, that's one hell of a rush, and she replies, really? As if she couldn't work out that cliff diving was exciting or dangerous. It's a minor point, but it encompasses all that's wrong with this film. The damn writing and Bella, I mean Kristen Stewart, she just blinks, mumbles and leaves. Why is she so desirable? She has nothing to say. She's a bad actress. She just makes everything awkward. There's no flow. And I'm not just having a go at the character Bella here. I'm having a go at Kristen Stewart. I've seen her in other films like Adventureland. Now, Adventureland was a good film, but she's the same person, and I don't even think it's the writing. She just goes, Every word has a bloody pause in it. It's annoying. These are the two main flaws of the film. They don't destroy it almost completely. Were it not for good acting and directing, this would be unbearable. I don't actually hate the film altogether. I don't think it's shit. I don't think it's the worst film I've ever seen. But it's just bad and pointless. And what annoys me the most is the amount of money it's making. I think it's the hype around it that pisses me off the most. So now what if I asked you a question? You call home to talk to your mom who's ill. Your uncle answers. You ask, where's my dad? He says he's gone to arrange a funeral. Now do you assume that your mum is dead? course you do. But do you take it as a certain? No. He could be out arranging the cat's funeral. You don't know. Well, apparently Edward does. As he calls Bella's dad to talk about God knows what, since her dad didn't have anything to say either. Jacob answers and tells Edward that he's arranging a funeral. Ed assumes Bella's dead and goes off to die. Now, I was arguing about this to a friend. Yes, we have that much fun. And he said that Edward thinks this because he knows the two vampires are hunting Bella down to kill her. But this isn't the case. Edward left because he thought the two vampires from the first film would follow him and she'd be danger-free. Also, Edward's sister sees Bella die in a premonition, but states how she definitely didn't tell Edward. So this is a massive plot hole. A massive one. Sure, Ed's depressed, but he's not retarded. He can get to Bella in under a day. It's best to check. He could probably do with the trip outside anyway.